You know what really makes us mad? Is wasting money on CDs with only one or two good songs.
Yeah. Tell them about punk.
What's up, posers? Welcome to Punk Live Pod. I am your co-host, Justin Hensley, and today we've got a little something special for you. So, the last couple years, we've asked a few friends to come on the show and to share their favorite records of the year. And this week, we are doing the same thing, except we're going to release them as their own episodes. So, today, you are going to hear from our good friends Adam Yo, who is a writer for No Echo. You're also going to hear from good friend Corey, frequent guest and friend, as well as Paul Dechichio of Tor Johnson Records gives us his records for 2021. So, hope you enjoy it, and we'll do a couple more of these next week, but as of right now, here it is. So, I am here with Paul Dechichio of Tor Johnson Records. Paul, how's it going?
Going pretty good. We're in year 2 of the plague, and so far so good, I guess.
You know, it's funny. I was just reading like this morning, right before we recorded, like, oh, everybody's talking about COVID again. I was like, God damn it, we're fucking back on new wave.
Everyone get your surfboards. Here we go.
Yeah, I know. It's just always, and I see people they're doing like the sky is falling thing again. It's like, well, shows are probably going to have to stop again. I was like, I mean, they didn't really stop this year, so I think we'll be fine.
Yeah, yesterday or maybe 2 days ago, Rhode Island instituted the new thing statewide where it's like all venues have to be capped at like 250 and all venues have to have vaccine or mask mandates. So it's like, we're trying to not shut shit down, but we'll see.
It's something that, I mean, you know, at this point, you know, better than nothing. But it just means now that bands will just have residencies instead of one big show.
Exactly.
It actually works out better in the long run. So.
I mean, I'd rather pick my day of the week than have it locked in.
Well, you know, tell us what Tor Johnson's been up to this year. I know you've got a big project that's currently in the works. It's not out yet, right?
I have a massive project that has been announced but is not out yet. So this year has been slow if you're looking at it on the surface. We had 2 releases early this year, a split tape between Boston bands Bedtime Magic and Greylock, who finally had their record release show last night actually in Boston, but that came out in like January or February. And then we finally saw the release of the There Were Wires Funambulance reissue. And if you go onto any of our social media right now, I've been doing like a band spotlight each day for all of the bands involved. I personally have not leaked what splits are what, who is with what bands. Although if you are a detective and go onto different bands' social media, you might be able to find that out.
That's awesome. I know a couple of the bands that I've seen the ones you've announced, and then I think you told me 1 or 2 other ones that a couple months ago that you got locked in. So some fun combinations there. That's a lot of really cool stuff going on there.
Yeah, it's been really fun to work with, and it's bands spanning tons of different genres, you know, similar to the label. So, and I'm trying to split it up so that the shipments would be a louder band than a like softer band than a louder band than, you know, so
yeah,
you get a good mix throughout the year.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. Yeah, so everybody go follow Paul on all the social medias. Tor Johnson, you're pretty much that on everything, right?
Pretty much, yeah. Tor Johnson Records or Tor Johnson.
Yeah, I'll include links as well to that stuff. Well, cool. So you're actually my first one this year. That we're talking about your picks of 2021. Do you have any overall opinions on the year in music?
You know, I have this issue every single year. When I hear something that I like, it just goes into rotation. And by the end of the year, I forgot it actually came out that year because it's just in rotation. I personally have been listening to a lot more mellow stuff a lot more indie rock, a lot more country folk, like sort of like style of thing, mostly because the world is on fire and I don't necessarily want to listen to loud music right now.
Yeah.
That said, there are some awesome, amazing loud records that have also come out this year. I just find myself gravitating towards the softer end of things this year.
It's funny. I found myself actually gravitating towards more like heavy and loud music this year. So
Really?
it's
right.
funny. It's funny how like people are in different like phases of styles of music. Because like Dylan never listens to heavy music. Like he doesn't want to listen to hardcore or like he listens to random metal records occasionally, but like he's not super into hardcore currently.
Okay.
And it's funny, and I'm like, this is good. And he's like, yeah, it's good, but I don't have anything to say about it. Like that kind of.
Yeah. Which is like it's an interesting time for hardcore right now because you're seeing a lot of bands blending a lot of genres, and it is interesting. But like on my drive or like when I'm at home, I'm like definitely leaning more towards like the softer end of things.
Yeah, it makes sense. Well, you sent me your list, and I've peeked a little bit of it here. So what do you want to start with?
I mean, I guess we might as well just run it down.
Sure.
So the first record on my list was Born Against by Amigo the Devil.
It was a quiet night down at the gaming hall. We doubled up on cocaine and Adderall. The room full of smoke and the air so still that I choked when I raised up both of my hands to yell bingo. I was looking around trying to track down who the biggest threat would be. Seeing the fear in everybody's eyes, and apparently it was me. I guess I know why. I've been coming here cleaning house for the past few weeks. I was B-I-N-G-I-N-G-O.
Not to be confused with Born Against the Band. That is the name of the record. Amigo the Devil plays like a very interesting form of like, I guess you could call it like dark folk, where it's like mostly him and an acoustic guitar, but like it's definitely leaning more towards like darker imagery used in like country stuff, like later or like early country stuff. And he's an amusing person. He puts a lot of like jokes in his songs. I was actually introduced to him. I met this wonderful, amazing girl this year named Michaela, and we send music back and forth. And she sent me a song of his called Cocaine and Abel, which actually came out on the previous record. And like definitely suggest listening to that. But then this record came out, and I really like a lot of the songs. That said, it's like you can tell that the record is more just a collection of songs and not necessarily written as a record, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I actually got a chance to see him twice this year on the same tour. I went out to Denver to visit with Michaela, and he was playing, and then saw him on the same tour when he came into Boston. And he referenced, like, when playing some of the more, like, I'll say, like, interlude, like, funnier songs on the record. Apparently, those were written as a writing exercise during the pandemic where he was totally uninspired to write songs. And he would, like, force himself to write a song, like, every day.
Yeah.
So they're not all winners. But, that said, the ones that are good, I think, are, like, really good. And seeing him live definitely, like, solidified this record in my list. Like, it was, like, on the fence until I saw him live, and he's a very captivating person. Like, with the exception of, like, hip-hop MCs, there's very few people that you can see actually hold a crowd in the palm of their hand, and he does. And it's very impressive.
I sampled a little bit of this record because this is one that wasn't on my radar at all. But listening to it, it was definitely a combination of a couple things. Like, there's definitely I'd say, like, country folk is, like, probably the main, lane that he's in. But he brings in a lot of, I don't know, my little glimpse of it. It sounded like he brings in some more, like, freak folk and, like, psych elements, too.
Totally. And it's interesting because he actually has the Jane Doe face tattooed on his hand. which is
Oh, nice.
like it's an interesting sort of like melding of worlds, if you will.
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, it's not like the first time I've heard of that though. Like former hardcore punk dudes being in like acoustic folk country projects, you know.
Sure. That's pretty common.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Yeah. It was definitely something I was not familiar with, but something a little bit different. I can always count on your picks to be things I don't expect to talk about on the show, if that makes sense.
Totally. And if you look at the label or things like that, you're like, oh, we're going to talk about a folk country record. Okay,
Yeah.
interesting.
I know, right? Because like a majority of your record label is what, like screamo or like sludge or like that kind of heavy stuff for the most part. And
Yeah.
this list is pretty light on all that kind of stuff. So
It really is.
what you got next?
So next is actually staying in the same lane of hardcore punk kids making country music. The Lucero record, When You Found Me.
On the open ocean, sailing down to Cuba, guns in the galley. Someone's gotta shoot 'em. Away, away, oh, destiny awaits. Sailing to redemption, but they'll miss you back home in Ohio. Back in Ohio.
It's also similar to the Amigos record in the fact that like I feel like it's a mix of songs and like not really put together as like an album, if that makes sense, like the way it flows. Some of the songs are really awesome. Like I really love them. Some of the better lyrics that Nichols has written, but it's like a very interesting mix of like tones going on
Yeah.
where it makes me wonder if it was recorded like in pieces, maybe across the pandemic. Because there's some songs where like, I don't know who decided to use this bass tone, but there's like a weird like 80s Miami Vice bass tone like on like some of the songs. It's kind of weird. And then there's like a lot of acoustic songs. And then there's some songs that have a super huge like E Street Band like Springsteen-y vibe. So it's like a weird mix where half the record almost feels like, Tennessee era, like Lucero, and then the other half of the record feels like overproduced, like Overton Park, like era. I don't know. It's like, but some of the songs on it are just excellent.
Yeah, I'm a big time Lucero fan. Like probably top 5 artists of all time. Like I love their entire discography.
Mhm.
And this is one of the weirdest records in their discography. Like
Right.
it does a lot of like a lot of the acoustic stuff really remind me of the last record, Among the Ghosts. Because like there's a lot of acoustic stuff on there. That record feels sort of like a concept album. I don't know that it necessarily is. Even this record too still feels a little like a concept album.
Sure.
Maybe not so much like there's like a theme that runs through all the songs, or like there's not like a story that is being told, but there's definitely like a tone or a different sound that they're going for. They've entered this phase in their career too where it's just kind of like they could release the same record over and over again, And I'd say the first 2 records sound pretty similar to each other. That Much Further West and Nobody's Heroes sound pretty similar to each other. Nobody's Heroes, Nobody's Darlings.
Okay. Nobody's Darlings.
And then they do 1372 and then Women and Work are similar. But then after that, it's just kind of like, they did that one record where they were going for like that Warren Zevon type sound. And then the next record was like them doing like I called that one like a Civil War record almost. Like,
yeah, totally.
And so then this one is kind of like with the artwork and like the more kind of experimental tracks on this record, it seems like they're going. I get very strong like country artist in the 80s vibe with this album.
Totally. Where like country has sort of like changed from like the bad boy to like then people are like trying to experiment as to what they can do.
Yeah. It's a very different record for them. And I fully expect that whatever the next thing they put out to probably sound completely different too. Like they don't seem to stay.
I think that's the interesting part of this record as well, is I feel like they experimented within the record. Like so many of their records have like a certain feel the whole way through.
Yeah.
You know, like tonal wise, like key wise, like it's put together that way. Where this record was like kind of all over the place, but I kind of love it for that reason. Because it's like not stagnant. And the songs are mixed in. Like I was re-listening to it the other day, and it's like acoustic song into like a super big song into like one of those like the songs with the bass tone. I don't know why they like stand out to me. They're awesome songs, but then like you have this like funk sort of like 80s like phaser on the bass mixed with like the piano that just like has this vibe, and it's like, but it's not all the songs.
Yeah, there's one song in particular that sound you're talking about really stands out, and I want to say it's maybe like the last track on the A side.
I think so, yeah.
Right before you flip it, because it when I listened to it on vinyl for the first time, I got to that point and I was like, "What?" Yeah,
well, that's I think that's like the first song that they use it on, because they use it a bunch on the B side. There's like a couple songs on the B side, but on the A side, it's like just relatively normal, we'll say, quote unquote, Lucero songs, and then that song, and you're just like, whoa, where did this come from?
Right. Yeah, it's an interesting record. It's funny. Like I've talked to Dylan and like some of our other friends who are big Lucero fans, and they don't like this one as much. But
I appreciate when an artist pushes themselves and it's not bad.
Yeah,
it might not necessarily be what you expect it to be, but it's not bad. They're good songs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That was my thinking too. Like my thinking was, I think maybe the biggest weakness that the record have is maybe a sequencing issue. Like maybe I wouldn't started the album off with the 2 tracks that it starts off with.
True.
They're very slow songs, and there's 2 of them back to back.
Yeah, that is very true.
Like an acoustic song next too, and it's like, I don't know. I think I would have found something a little more energy maybe, but I don't know. They were probably setting the tone too, so it's hard to say.
I'm interested next month, actually, in the middle of January. I'm going out to Denver again, and Lucero and Amigo the Devil are actually playing at like the same show. So I always love the way Lucero mixes in songs from all their records, but I'm really interested to see how they add these songs in.
Yeah, because I've been seeing them live for a bunch of years now, and like they always find a way to work in
everything.
New songs. Yeah, it does feel like there's something from every record on there.
They really do. And I always like how they in the middle they'll do the like everyone else leaves and Ben just does his acoustic songs. So it'll be interesting to see how they mix in the songs off this record.
Yeah, that'd be exciting. Yeah, I think they're playing around here next year too, so I might try and go see them. But awesome. Well, cool. Want to move on to your next pick there?
Sounds good. So the next one is Dinosaur Jr.'s Sweep into Space.
Side to take, never sure when I'm awake. There's a difference, make it 3. If I could change, I would agree. There's a section out of reach, little things I'd like to keep. Rattles in your head aside, I'd expect another time. I ran away, I gave it up today.
Love this record. It's an excellent record. I find myself continually going back to it. It finally feels like Dinosaur Jr. is back as Dinosaur Jr. Like Lou came back for the last one, Give a Glimpse, and like it was really good, but you could tell he was still like finding his footing back in with the band, you know? And like this one just it just hits right, you know? Like Lou is also such an amazing songwriter, and I feel like Farm and the other record when they came back but Lou wasn't in the band. Hang on, I'm gonna find it so that way I know what I'm talking about. Farm and I Bet on Sky. So Farm and I Bet on Sky, when Lou wasn't back in the band, they were great, but they just felt like J Mascis bands. Like it's a J Mascis band. And this finally feels like Dinosaur Jr. like back.
You know, I guess my Dinosaur Jr. ignorance is too big, because like I've never listened to any of their records. I've heard songs for sure, but like I've just never. They're like a really big like touchstone musically for a ton of musicians, and anybody's like, it's that Dino Jr. sound, and I'm like, I'll take your word for it, because I never know really.
That's fair.
Yeah.
It's interesting like listening to them all together like this, because you know J Mascis is J Mascis. Like literally anyone that listens to indie rock will be like, yeah, the dude with lots of pedals who like is fucking killer at shredding guitar, and like there we go. Lou Barlow is such an amazing musician, and the things that he's able to do with his bass, like it fills out that band so much more, and it gives so much more room for Jay to be Jay, you know? And like it makes it way more interesting, because now it's not just like your bass playing like your root notes while some dude shreds over it. Like this is like actually fully interesting music, and it's not just like somebody wanking on a guitar the whole time. Like not to say that Jay isn't amazing, because he is, but you can tell that they finally like hit their stride back together. If you listen to that one and Give a Glimpse like back to back, you can tell that they're like, oh yeah, they've been playing together. Like not only have they been playing together forever, but now they're like clicked back together.
Yeah. Awesome. Did this record get a lot of like attention when it came out? I feel like it kind of like got swept away.
Yeah, like I feel like, so this came out earlier in the year. I want to say like April, and like I think they did a massive tour around it, but then like that was it. So I think like by like May or June, like no one was talking about it.
Yeah.
Which is really too bad, because it's an awesome record. But that's also the state of media these days.
Yeah. Yeah. It is funny how like artists will spend years working on a record, and then like they'll do the singles, you know, dripping out some singles here and there, and then when the record comes out, then it's like big push for the record, and then like you push for the tour in support of the record, but then like after that it's like, and now what do you do with your life?
You know, therein lies the question.
Yeah. Are you touring nonstop? Now I understand why musicians and like artists in like the 50s and 60s and 70s would release like 2 albums in a year, you know?
Like just record like 2 albums worth of material and be like, all right, here we go.
Yeah. Release them separately.
All right.
We get talked about twice this year. Moving on.
So a little bit of a switch up in the genre. This is Aesop Rock and Blockhead released Garbology.
Hey, pulled pork sliders, headed for Satori and jorts and horse blinders. I'm more for the sorted, got nan for the normies. Cornered, my storm got plans for the Dorothies. I storm all forts for my gramps war stories. Short sword swinging like a dance floor in the 40s. My oars both row in an ocean of fringe science. The low roads owner of the most inched lighters. I maybe got 1,000. My crane kick plays like a train through a mountain. My neck chop plays like blades on a frisbee. Old tally ho had the whole place in a tizzy as you with it. Big name wake made a windswept village. Visit with a simps get skittish. Some get a signal to the ships in a distance. Most get crickets. It It's slim pickings. Folks say I'm difficult. Too stubborn. It's funny, I'm real easy. Yeah, I'm bugging. I like
We're gonna say Garbology.
Yeah, I think it sounds funnier too.
I do too.
Garbology.
So I know last year I talked about Aesop Rock's full length that he put out last year. I really like the direction he's been going. So obviously when he was like early 2000s, if you listen to older Aesop Rock, he was all about like speed and like being as fast as possible, I guess. I mean, not as fast as possible, but like speed was definitely his forte. And he's been slowing down a lot more, and like I feel like has been writing way better rhymes, and like he's concentrating on his lyrics more than like a gimmick of like rhyming fast. So that combined with Blockhead's producing, it's like, for those unfamiliar with like quote unquote backpack like indie rap, Blockhead has this amazing knack for creating beats surrounding more melody than the actual beat. Like he will go find these like jazz licks and like classical licks and like create a beat around it. And like the first track on the record, I don't even know if there's drums. I don't think there's drums. Like I don't know, it's just really interesting. And it's like one of the things that drew me as a punk kid, as an indie kid, to this style of hip hop, where it's not just like somebody making boom bap like beats, it's somebody actually creating music and then awesome rhymes like over it. And I think Blockhead does an excellent job of that.
Yeah, there's like a couple different approaches to writing hip hop, which I mean it's like with every genre, so it perfectly makes sense exactly. Why like where some are more of like you've got producers or DJs or like creating beats just for the sake of creating beats, and then like, well, these are the beats I have, you want to do something with, like that kind of thing when they find an MC or a rapper to go over it. Or then there's like the approach of like this where it's like constructing like a piece of, it's not to say that the other beats are not pieces of music, but like making more like a cohesive kind of like, I don't know, it could stand on its own as like a piece more so than something that's just like, yeah, it could stand on its own as a beat, but like it stands out more when there's rap over it. But
right, it's sort of the approach of like, does it need the rap over it?
Right. Yeah.
Or is it like 3 minutes of the same loop over and over and over again? You know?
Right.
It's interesting, and I feel like I don't know if they wrote it this way, and I don't know if they like produced it this way, but some of the songs feel more like a band where like the two of them got together and created the track together. It's like, oh, all right, so if you do this kind of rhyme over this, then this will work, and then we'll switch it to this. And it's like, I feel like a lot of hip hop is people on their own. Like the producer creates the beat and gives it to the rapper, and the rapper raps over it.
Right.
Right. And like this definitely has a much more cohesive feel to it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely like different ways to do different things. So like, of course, there's completely different methods of recording rap as well.
Of course.
But yeah, there's definitely something a little bit more organic sounding. Does that make sense?
Totally.
There's more, I feel like there's more interplay
with
the music and the rap.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
Yeah.
Actually, to stay on the same subject, I'm going to skip over one and go to the next one on my list.
Yeah.
So not the other side of the coin, because like I would say they're like maybe a different part of the same side of the coin, if you will. Czarface and MF Doom released Super What?
Okay.
Soul surviving, dudes so conniving, never stop driving. They pussy like I don't let them sit behind you when you driving. Might even think you talking about them when you rhyming. Or to keep the toolie in the lining. Or to thank the good Lord that you ain't the type to line them. Ain't nobody's business, why they always spying? Type of shit is this, find nothing, get the lying. Turn the world against you, even your men's buying. It's a dirty game, getting hectic, real tiring. Top it off, now they playing victim, hit a violin. Dripping the color envy, more greener than Ireland. Surrounded by snakes.
takes more meter than the lion's den.
You're talking too much.
Can't remember why or when. Got you feeling guilty, Jedi tricks on the mind again. Think he eat a dick with chips, hit a Heineken.
Action. As I continue where we left off. As I continue where we left off. Action. As I continue where we left off.
The rebel, the villain, the rebel, the
People saying Zar like
And this ended up being MF Doom's final release before he passed. For those of you who don't know who Czarface is, Czarface is Boston indie rap duo 7L and Esoteric, combined with Wu-Tang's Inspect the Deck. So being from New England and like getting into the like late 90s, 2000s, like indie rap scene, 7L and Esoteric were like pretty huge. 7L is the producer, Esoteric is the rapper. And they were definitely like bigger act within the scene. And so then they sort of disappeared when like the indie rap bubble sort of popped in like the, you know, late 2000s. And so they've come back as Czarface, and it's awesome. It's like, it's so good. It's definitely, I don't want to say grittier because it's still MF Doom who loves to like have fun with his rhymes, but it's more rap than indie hip hop, if that makes sense. But one of the things I love about all the Czarface stuff, and like this record in particular, is they love to use comic book and sci-fi themes throughout their records. Like all of their records are comic book covers. The idea is that Czarface is like a villain, and like all their it's fun. It's like, it sounds like kind of more gritty hip hop a little bit, but it's all fun lyrics. It's all just like, it's just cool to see. And MF Doom fucking killed it on this record. Like, it was amazing.
Did this come out before he died or after?
This came out like right at the same time.
Oh,
like,
it was one of those like, yeah. I feel like it was like they were right on top of each other.
Yeah. They were like less than a week apart, and I don't remember which one came first, honestly. But
well,
yeah.
Remember too though, like he was gone for like a month before they even like told anyone too, which was
which is crazy. So I guess I don't know. I don't remember the exact chronological, but it was like right on top of each other.
Yeah. I mean, he was a massive icon in hip hop, 2000s hip hop, especially. Kind of never really like crossed that super mainstream appeal, but he definitely was one of those guys that like if you were deep into rap, you knew who he was, and like
totally
his influence was super felt in every, you know, all levels of hip hop. So yeah, kind of a wild. I mean, it kind of fits with his whole personality and gimmick throughout his career anyway.
So this is actually the second record that they teamed up on. They did one years ago called Czarface meets Metalface, which was also awesome. It was this one seemed like it was more, I don't want to say celebratory, that's not the right word, but like Czarface meets Metalface was like as if they were super villains fighting each other.
Right.
And Super What was more like if they teamed up.
Yeah.
You know? And like it was definitely a cool vibe, and like kind of I hate to say a cool record to go out on, but like, you know, it was a cool vibe for that.
Yeah. What is the word? Like, there's a word here that I'm like, not fitting, but
I would say fitting, because like the whole concept of the records and the project in general was like definitely went along with MF Doom's whole persona that he like created, you know. So I do feel like it was sort of a fitting record.
Yeah. A good like kind of summation on him as a rap personality. Yeah.
Totally.
He's one of those guys who like he created like a persona.
He did.
More so than a lot of other rappers tend to.
I forget what group he was in, but he was in a group in the 90s, like pre-Mask, and like they got pretty big. And when he decided to come back to rap, he was like, I'm going to put a mask on so no one knows that it's me.
Yeah. I mean,
I love that.
You get more freedom too. Like there's like expectations aren't there to be like a certain way. But yeah.
Exactly.
Important figure
that he was
in the hip hop world. Well, which direction you want to go now, since you kind of hopped over?
I might as well do the one I skipped.
Okay,
why not?
Makes sense.
Yeah. So Couplets LP1 or Couplets singular.
We're moving fast, cinder rushing past. We're gray like mice and drowning in the dregs. We've tendency of kicking all our feet and churning cream for someone else's tea.
LP1. So Couplet is Evan Weiss from a million fucking bands, mostly Into It Over It. He, along with the drummer of Pet Sematary, teamed up with Tanner from You Blew It and made this wonderful, wonderful, like mellow, I hate to say dream pop, but like just a really good record. It's totally like American football, like Death Cab, Postal Service-y, like worship. It's like super mellow, and I end up playing this record off him. I've started working like a day a week at a record store, mostly so I have taxes on the books when I go to claim everything from the print shop. And I put this on in the background at the store often, like a good mellow like vibe. And I mean, with the people in this band, like, you knew it was gonna be good. There was no way it was not gonna be good.
Is you said you didn't want to mention dream, you didn't want to call it dream pop. Is can I coin a term now?
Yeah, do it.
Is Dreamo a thing?
Oh, it is now. It is now. Evan and Tanner, if you are listening right now, you are now Dreamo. You know, that's where we're at. I'm expecting big things from LP2. Let's go.
This will be one of those things where it's like everybody calls them that, but they don't like the term, so they'll never use. Yeah, like all the bands who start that sound that gets the term applied to it.
Man, did we just relate Couplet to Fugazi? Is that what just happened? Is that what just happened?
Who else does stuff like that? There's always somebody. It's like, yeah, we rejected that term. It's like,
yeah,
well, too bad. That's what we call you.
Sorry, bud.
Is somebody else in You Blew It doing something? Is he like a producer now? God.
Maybe. I've lost track of so many of those dudes. Like, I know Andy is in Dikembe now.
Yeah.
Tanner is doing this and then also owns a coffee shop. And then I do not know what the other dudes are doing.
I feel like I just read about a member of You Blew It like being involved in a record I just researched like this week.
I want to say they're the drummer they had when they broke up, who I forget his name. Super nice dude, super tall, has a mustache. I think he was doing recording.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's somebody in the band recording.
Yeah.
Something. Oh, one of the guys is in that band Cathedral Bells.
Oh, interesting. Former
You Blew It member Matt Misor.
That was the drummer. Yeah, that was him.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Cathedral Bells is pretty good. They're kind of like 80s kind of like post-punk with like lots of like echoey kind of reverb, little gothy. Pretty cool.
I'll check it out.
Yeah, cool. Funny. It's fun to make those connections.
Yeah.
A couple more for you. What?
Yeah. So we're gonna end with a couple louder ones. I am going to let slip here a wonderful little connection that will only be for you viewers at home / listeners at home. I said earlier that I have not let slip in social media as to what any of the splits are in the subscription series. These next two bands are one of the splits in the series. So to start it off, My Fiction's Time Immemorial. I wanted to put out my Fictions record for a long ass fucking time, and then they broke up. And they used to play with Weak Teeth all the time. Used to see them on the regular. They came back basically with this EP and have played, to my knowledge, one show. It was really fun. They were awesome. Came back as a 3-piece, and it's like they picked up where they left off. My Fictions was always a really interesting band, in my opinion, where 2 of the members are like hardcore kids. The drummer was in a death metal band at the time. Like there's all of these genres sort of surrounding the band, and I feel like they always, I don't want to say push those influences down, but they always like were very particular in terms of how they wrote. And I feel like this EP, they finally like opened up to the fact that as individuals, they have a lot of different genre. They have a lot of different influences, and it really shows. It's a really cohesive EP, and it's just really fucking good.
Yeah, they were one of those bands that were part of the emo revival, late 2000s, early 2010s. Mm-hmm. They were like one of the screamo bands because there was the 2 halves of the emo revival with like the Matthew Kinsella inspired stuff, and then like the revival of like more like screamo bands with like La Dispute and Touche Amore and all those bands. Mm-hmm. So like my biggest like touchstone for my Fictions was their split with The Saddest Landscape. Like that was probably my introduction to them.
That's a great split.
Yeah. Ugh, I fucking love Saddest Landscape. What are they doing these days?
Who knows?
They're one of those bands that it's like they could like put out an EP next year and everybody be like, cool, like you're back, But yeah, my Fictions, like I was not really paying too much attention to them back then because it was like Dylan and I have talked about like we had like emo revival burnout by the time that they were kind of like having their kind of descent or ascent. Yeah. And so like I kind of missed them like the first go round. So like listening to this when you sent it to me, I was like, oh shit, I hadn't thought about them in a while. Like, and they're heavier than I remembered them being.
They are, and I feel like that's them leaning into those other influences. Like I do feel like this record it's a lot heavier. It's definitely this is going to be a weird thing to say because of obviously the state of the world, but it feels like a pandemic record. It feels like they're putting a shitload of emotion into this EP. It's heavy. The drumming Seamus's drumming is insane on it. He's always been an amazing drummer, but I feel like he really let himself lean into the fact that like, oh yeah, dude, I was in a death metal band. Like, yep, it's true.
I wonder if part of that is like because that death metal band I assume is done, right? Like they haven't done much.
They are. Yeah.
So then it probably becomes this like, well, now I need a heavy outlet, and this is the project I'm working on. Let's throw some of that in there.
Yeah, totally. But he always like threw little things in, but I'm just like, oh man, you just did a whole part with blast beats. All right, okay, all right.
I love screamo with blast beats.
True, insane. So the second band, which for those of you paying attention at home, will be on the other side of the split with my Fictions, is Dreamwell's Modern Grotesque. I'm definitely biased because Dreamwell is a local band. So they put on an amazing show. But I feel like this record really captures what, in my opinion, is going on with a lot of the, I hate to say younger bands. Like, I hate to be an old man about it, but I'm going to be. People in their like mid to late 20s at this point, because they have grown up within the digital age. I feel like a lot of bands, younger bands, are drawing from so many influences, so many more than like younger bands when I was younger, because the access to every type of genre is readily available. And so I love that you can listen to this record and be like, oh, crazy, that's like a shoegaze part. Oh, crazy, there's like a weird twinkly emo, like sort of like intro here. Like it keeps it really fresh, and it's a really refreshing way to see the genre done. Do like bands doing that like louder, like screamo-y stuff. It's really cool.
Yeah, this is one of those records that I already had like on my overall list for the year. So this was one that I was really familiar with. It's one of those ones too that was like, it's probably stayed on my list. Like when it came out, it was probably on my list for a good couple months, but then just barely got edged out of my like ridiculous top 200 that I keep running all year long. So it just got bumped off, but like re-listening to it today, I was like, does it need to be bumped off? Maybe I should bump it back onto the list. And you're right, it is. It's like, I guess the overall genre would probably be screamo, but there's shoegaze. There's that like Failure and Hum style heavy space rock. There's some dreamy elements. Like there's a lot of stuff going on this record. And yeah, listening to it when it first came out, I was like, this is good. And like, yeah, you're right. It is. It does seem like it's more of like younger listeners who have more access to more styles of music than ever before. All figuring out how to mash it in one band. And then
making it work. Like that's the other part that like I've heard plenty of young bands that like want to mash up stuff and it just sounds like you're mashing stuff up. Like the way they're able to draw from all of these influences and actually make a cohesive song and a good song. Like it's impressive.
Yeah, because we've all seen those bands where it's very clearly everyone in the band got to write their own song and they all want to play a different kind of music. And, this isn't one of those situations. This is just more of a, how do we work in like this riff that I came up with that fits this sound into our overall sound. So yeah, it's a really creative sounding record.
It's also a really cohesive record. Like it flows from start to end really well. Drawing from all those influences, nothing sounds out of place.
Right.
Which like that's a talent that's like I know plenty of people my age can't do.
Right.
Like,
I know, right? And you had some like runners up as well.
I have a couple
honorable mentions. I guess is how we should phrase that.
So the first one, and this is massive for me, and this is stretching the rules, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Is the entire Karate discography. So Karate has never had their stuff online. Their stuff has been out of print forever and stupid expensive, and they worked out a deal with Numero Group, and so all of their discography has, I think at this point, maybe there's like a couple records that haven't yet, are all on Spotify, are all online. They're starting to get repressed, and Karate and Jeff Farina in general like holds a very special place in my heart. As a former band geek, their like super jazzy approach to indie rock was like just made me super happy all the time. I got to see them like twice. Jeff played the record store that I used to own. Like, so it makes me super happy to have their stuff available / released this year. So yeah.
Yeah, and not to give away something we've been talking about with you for a while now, involving this band, there was a point where we were like, oh, none of their stuff's online, and now this makes it much easier to get through.
So there's a large possibility you might hear me on another episode in 2022 is basically what we're trying to say.
Yeah. So if you're familiar with the formats of the show, I'm not giving anything away, but if you like discographies, this is might be one that we tied to it. So we'll save that for later. But yeah. That was always the hard thing about them. It was always like, what? In the airplane or in the aquarium, or whatever those like or EPs. That's like the only thing that you could find for the longest time.
Which, like, you know, for a band that I love so much, weakest record. That is their weakest record.
It's half Minutemen covers.
Right, exactly. You know, like, I appreciate that it exists, but no thanks. My second honorable mention is the Godspeedy Black Emperor's God's P at State's End. And I absolutely love Godspeed a lot. I really do. I always have. And this record is awesome, but it's kind of forgettable. Like, it doesn't really stick with me as much as some of their other ones. And with their more recent releases, I've purposely not listened to it online until I can have it in hand and listen to it in hand. And they did that same thing that they did, I think it was with Luciferian Towers, where it's like you're supposed to listen to it as like one side of an LP, then one side of a 10-inch, then the other side of the LP, then the other side of the 10, and I'm not going to do that. I'm sorry. I'm going to listen to the record, then I'm going to listen to the other record, and it's going to, I don't know, whatever. That said, that my opinion of this record may completely change. They're coming through in April, and so I assume they're going to play it front to back because that's what they've done the last couple of times they've toured. So my opinion of this record may completely change in April. But at this point, it's a great record. But, like, I don't know. It doesn't need to be on the list.
If they do play it, they'll probably play it in the order that you were meant to be listening to it. And then you'll finally get the true experience of what it was supposed to be.
and then I'll be like, oh, it's great. It's wonderful.
Why did I do it wrong?
Then I have one more honorable mention as well. Christine, my partner, if you are not aware, runs a wonderful podcast and has been on this podcast.
Absolutely.
Where she talks about ska music and how wonderful it is. And the Catbite record that came out this year is absolutely amazing. So Catbite's record, Nice One, is really, really, really good. I couldn't put it on the list because I personally have only listened to it a couple times. I haven't listened to it obviously as much as she has, but their version of, you could call it like more punk inspired rocksteady than you could ska. Like, they just have like such a good vibe on their songs, and it's good to hear ska that's not third wave worship, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
There's so many great bands coming out right now that are really able to mix the traditions of ska, the traditions of like rocksteady and reggae with punk and with a newer vibe that doesn't come off as real big fishy, if that makes sense. You know? So I guess it's similar to how we were talking about Dreamwell, like where you have people who have access to the entire history of a genre and history of music and are able to really make it their own, and makes for a really good record.
Oh yeah, this is one of my like favorites of the year too. Like, ska has had a great year, actually. This has been a really strong year for ska records. And yeah, I call Catbite ska, but yeah, they probably borrow more from like the rocksteady reggae side of things. They're definitely a more like soulful approach to their like R&B inspired approach, which I believe I talked about the first Catbite record with Ann Lepore this year on the show. And one of the things was, I think she's like a jazz vocalist, like college graduate, like that's what she got her degree in, and it really shows in her style of singing. So I really love that. I love that. Like, if you've ever heard of the Frighteners, who were put out by like Daptone, or like super old Studio One stuff, like the original like Bob Marley and the Wailers stuff, it's super soulful. It's like yeah, there's upstrokes, and yeah, it's like reggae, but like there's so much R&B inspiration, and it's cool to see a band drop from more of the upbeat like Motown stuff, where like a lot
a lot of the R&B inspiration, quote unquote, that you hear in older ska is like drawing from like crooners and like sort of like more low energy soul.
Yeah.
And like to hear someone like be like, nah, but like what if we took like that super high energy, like awesome R&B soul stuff and then combine it with like reggae rocksteady.
Yeah.
But yeah, yes, please.
Daptone is a good, like, you could put this record out on Daptone Records.
100%.
And it would 100%. Work
yeah.
with their discography. Yeah. That's actually a good comparison there. Yeah. Yeah. One of the best of the year for sure. But I think that'll do it for us today.
That's my 2021.
Yeah. Thank you so much for doing this. I always love having you on for these.
My pleasure. Yeah, this was great. It was always a challenge trying to remember what actually came out this year.
Yeah. I have made it my goal in the last like couple years to just like keep track of my listening throughout the year. And it winds up this year I've listened to 500 plus records that came out this year. So counting EPs and stuff like that. But I have to keep track of it or I will 100% forget what I listened to. So yeah.
That's the thing is like I'll be like, oh, this record came out. That's awesome. Let's check it out. And then I'll just like add it, like gets the plus sign, like it goes into my rotation, ends up in my daily mixes, or like, the record's on the shelf and I'll be like, oh yeah, I love this record. Let me put it on. It doesn't matter when it came out. I love that record. I'm going to put it on. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's how I treat my vinyl collection. It's like, it's not a year specific thing. It's just like, these are my records. I like that one.
Exactly.
I'm listening to it. Well, thank you so much. Everyone go follow Tor Johnson on all the things online and stay tuned for the
pre-orders are up. I don't know when this is going to go out. They might be sold out. Who knows? Right now we're at like a little bit less than 20 available. If you are listening to this and it is sold out and there's certain ones you want, each band is going to get super limited amounts. So keep an eye on band socials and you can buy direct from them, each one. And keep your eye out for some other fun surprises coming out throughout the year.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Justin.
We'll see you in 2022.
Sounds good.